In my past life, I was sent to a psychiatric hospital by my husband and biological son. Immediately after, my husband married his first love. I endured inhumane abuse. And after my death, my ashes were thrown into a stinking drain. When I was reborn, I chose to avoid any further connection with him. But he was dumbfounded. Back then, my father sacrificed himself to save Simon's father. My mother, heartbroken, passed away not long after. Before her death, she entrusted me to Simon's family. Simon's father publicly promised me to Simon in marriage. To outsiders, the Simon family was known for their deep sense of loyalty and gratitude, and as an orphan, I had found a place to belong. Living under their roof, I had no choice but to flatter and behave well, hoping for a safe place to stay. At first, the Simon family treated me decently. But after Simon's father passed away, my position in their family changed. Simon's mother's attitude toward me soured. After marriage, she despised me even more for being just a housewife, unworthy of her university-educated son. I couldn't help him in his career. I only held him back. A month before the college entrance exam, Simon's mother accidentally broke her leg. To ensure Simon could focus on his studies, I voluntarily gave up my chance to take the exam and took on the responsibility of caring for my future mother-in-law. Simon, as expected, succeeded and was accepted into university. 2 years later, Simon's father was in the advanced stages of stomach cancer, and once again, I was by his side, tirelessly taking care of him. Before his death, Simon's father held our hands and said he would only close his eyes after seeing us married. In this new life, I finally understood. Simon's mother had never thought highly of me. Even after she became partially paralyzed and unable to care for herself, she still encouraged Simon to divorce me. The only reason was that Simon and his first love didn't want to care for her anymore. After my mother-in-law passed away, Simon immediately filed for divorce. Even my biological son, whom I had raised with great effort, said, "With a mother like you, I'll never be able to hold my head high. You're just not good enough for my dad. I only want Wendy as my mom." That was when I realized Wendy, Simon's first love, had already won my son over. But I was completely unaware of this. It turned out that every time Wendy, under the pretext of being a childhood friend, helped me look after the children, she was subtly testing my limits. I remember one mid-autumn festival. After finishing all the household chores and preparing the meals, I waited for them to come back, but they were late. I finally found them at the park. And there they were, the three of them, holding hands and walking happily together. When Simon ran into a colleague, the colleague asked, "Are you out with your wife and child?" Simon didn't respond, simply accepting it. As they left, my son called out to Wendy, "Mom, heading fossile wide sigh. We should go home and eat." To be honest, when I saw this, my heart turned cold. I looked at my outdated clothes and the rough hands that had become calloused from household chores. Then I glanced at Wendy, youthful and radiant, with a bright smile on her face. I couldn't help but feel ashamed of myself. A housewife, who had grown old and only knew how to stay around the kitchen, was worlds apart from them. My existence must have been a disgrace to them. That day, when I returned home, I locked myself in my room and didn't even eat. When Simon found out that I was angry because of this, he actually said, "You're making a scene. He's just a little kid. He called the wrong person. Why don't you explain? It's just a colleague I know casually. Why bother explaining so much? Besides, we were starving and were just rushing home to eat." I had to admit, he was good at arguing. And I had no response. What he said wasn't entirely unreasonable. So I forgave both him and his son. But I could clearly see that they didn't feel embarrassed when they were mistaken for a family of 3. In fact, they were quite happy. My heart felt like it had been pierced by a thorn. And it ached whenever I thought of it. At first, I thought I was overreacting. But from then on, Wendy came over to our house more and more often. After Simon's mother became completely paralyzed, Wendy, under the guise of being a godtrader, began to nitpick everything I did. "Sister-in-law, you're feeding out this? She's a patient. She needs a balanced diet. Wendy looked at my freshly cooked dish with disgust, then started to sow discord. Sister-in-law. It's getting cold. You should change Aunt's bedding to something thicker. Sister-in-law. Simon is a university student. He should look more presentable when he goes out. Sister-in-law. How can you hit your child? She didn't need to say anything. I already knew that patients should be treated better. That men should be more presentable. And that I should be more patient with children. But where was the money going to come from? Did I have enough time? Did I have enough energy? I had to work, take care of the whole family, and do everything myself. I didn't even have time to rest. And sometimes, I would have to finish all the chores late at night, when the elderly and children were asleep. Simon was still in university and couldn't help at all. The burden fell entirely on me. Wendy was just standing there, without any real responsibility. Not only did Simon not help me, but he also agreed with Wendy. Yeah, Wendy is right. Mom has been eating these things with no nutrition. When will she get better? Can't you take better care of Mom? We university students have social engagements. You wouldn't understand. Anyway, we can't be so stingy that people laugh at us. When it comes to raising children, you need to be more thoughtful. Why are you so crude? Where's the money? I asked him, looking at him helplessly. You're so petty. It's always about money. Simon, don't say that about your wife. After all, she hasn't been to university, so she doesn't have high standards. It was Wendy who started the conflict, yet she was seen as the good person. Before I could say anything, my mother-in-law yelled at me. Men speak, women don't. Even my son looked at me with disgust and said, can't you give Dad some face? How do I have such a shrewish mom? Didn't I have any pride? I wasn't always like this. But they pushed me to the point of breaking. Just as I raised my hand to slap this unfilial son, Wendy stepped in. He's so young. How can you hit him? It was like the world had turned upside down. My son was mine. Yet I was made to feel like a stepmother. If it weren't for Simon and his mother's indulgence, how could she openly bully me like this? But after Simon's mother passed away, Simon and Wendy didn't even pretend anymore. Simon said to me, after all these years, the Simon family has treated you well. But our fate has come to an end. Let's get a divorce. A roar exploded in my skull. It felt as if the world had collapsed in an instant. I could not accept the words he'd just spoken. He believed marrying me was the greatest charity he could offer, caring for his sick father, nursing his paralyzed mother, wiping and feeding his son. That was some tremendous favor to me. He had no idea what those years had been, tending a bedridden mother-in-law, enduring her lashings and insults whenever she was displeased. If I even dared complain to him, he'd say I didn't know how to be grateful, always looking for trouble for no reason. I stared at him, my eyes burning as if they would spit flames. What did you say? I asked. Simon wavered, then repeated, let's get a divorce. Memory surged through me all at once. Simon and Wendy had been childhood sweethearts. If I hadn't appeared, he might never have married me. Had he ever loved me at all? Had everything been my one-sided sacrifice? I had believed his family's and my own endless compromises would soften him. I had tended to his bedside needs, borne his children, supported him through school. People are made of flesh. Even the coldest stone should warm eventually. Yet Simon, behind my back, spent moonlit nights with his first love as if it were his due. Their peaceful years were built on my burden. Now the elders were gone and the child grown. And he had the gall to tell me he'd never loved me and wanted a divorce. For the first time in my life, when I was so furious I had no words, I laughed an ugly, hollow laugh. My laughter sounded monstrous. Simon and Wendy both froze, shocked into silence. The laugh dissolved into tears that fell like beads severed from a string, slapping the floor. Simon, touch your conscience. Aren't you afraid of retribution for treating me like this? I blurted. I was forced. He blurted back. That one excuse forced laid him bare to me. Who forced you to marry me? Who forced you to share a bed with me? Who forced you to father my child? I spat. If he'd have resolve, why didn't he resist? If he loved Wendy, why not run away with her? If he didn't want me, Why not have kept himself pure? He had none of those scruples, he simply enjoyed every comfort I provided. I got pregnant within a month of marriage. Now that he considered me useless, he sought love elsewhere. You too. You. Simon stammered, flushed and speechless. You're being irrationally shrew. Wendy saw him falter and lunged forward. If your family hadn't used their favors as a bargaining chip, Simon would never have married you. He never loved you. Why spend the rest of your life clinging to someone who doesn't love you? You only lost a home. We lost love. She crowed. You can say whatever pretty things you like, you're still a shameless whore. I was blinded by fury and spoke without restraint. Smack. Simon's slap woke me completely. He hadn't just changed his hair, that had always chosen the easiest, most advantageous option. Simon had always been selfish. Back then I was alone, caring for a hemiplegic mother-in-law while raising a newborn son. I hadn't even taken my confinement month, I was straight back to housework, and it left me with chronic ailments. No matter how bitter or hard things were, I never scolded him. I looked helplessly at my son. He was my own flesh, the only tie I had left to that family. I couldn't imagine Simon betraying me. I crouched down and reached to pull him into my arms. He shoved me away. You wicked woman, don't touch me. I want Wendy to be my mother. He sneered. My heart died in that instant. Wendy's triumphant look was a blade, slicing into me again and again. So in the end all these years had been a mistake. My mother-in-law had never accepted me. My husband slept beside me with a different dream. Even the child I carried for 10 months could betray me. Dream on. I screamed, nearly hysterical. I wasn't willing to lose so completely. I wanted to drag them all down with me. I planned to make a scene at their workplace, to ruin Simon and Wendy. But I never made it out the door. My husband and my son forced me into a psychiatric hospital. A stabbing pain at the back of my neck, then nothing. When I woke, I fought desperately to prove I wasn't mad, and was rewarded with cruelties beyond human endurance. A sane person strapped to a hospital bed, electric shocks until my body convulsed and foam gathered at my mouth. Until my mind slipped into oblivion. Physical pain was the lesser evil. It was the torment of the mind that was merciless. I was locked in a pitch-dark cell where calling for help accomplished nothing. That helplessness and despair sank into my bones. Even the thought of reliving it chills me now. No one believed me. The more I resisted, the more they insisted I was ill. To quiet me they kept increasing my medication. My brain went to mush. I slept continuously, having fulfilled my obsession, losing all sense of day and night. Eventually I broke, really became the mad woman they insisted I was. Even when I behaved, swallowed my pills obediently, I never left that place. My health declined steadily. Simon and our son never came to see me. After years on heavy drugs my organs failed. I died in the hospital. At that time Simon was busy preparing a wedding with his first love, too occupied even to handle my affairs. He tossed a single line at the hospital, you deal with it, and then vanished. The hospital cremated me in haste. My ashes were casually scattered into a filthy drain. How could I not hate them? I hated them so fiercely I wanted to drag that pair of lovers down to hell with me. In this life, I will not repeat the same mistakes. Fortunately, having fulfilled my obsession, I was reborn in the year when the college entrance exams were reinstated, and there's still time to change everything. This time, not only will I take the exam, but I will also give my all to get into a good university. I will make sure to stand at the top of the pyramid, firmly in control of my own destiny. With a voice that can't be ignored. I will take my revenge on that despicable pair of dog-like people. I calculated the timing. And Simon's mother broke her leg a month before my college entrance exam. Now, with only 6 months left until the exam, I must first leave Simon's family. Then break off the engagement with him. To completely escape from this hellish household. With this thought in mind, that very night, I confronted Simon's mother. Since she despised me so much, I would use that to my advantage. Auntie, Yele, I'm moving out. When Simon's mother heard this, a flicker of surprise flashed in her eyes. It was clear she hadn't expected me to take the initiative to leave. Perhaps she had always thought that, as an orphan, I would desperately beg to marry her son. So, when Simon's father took me into their home, she never showed me any kindness. The dirty and hard tasks around the house were naturally left for me to do. Whenever Simon's father came home, she would pretend to be kind and say, "You see, this child insists on doing the housework. I've told her to treat this place like her own home. Heh, this child really knows how to behave." Simon's father, a grown man, had no idea what women's tricks were. At that time, I was no longer a child. I understood that she was putting on a facade for others, all to make sure I couldn't complain to Simon's father. As an orphan, I could only endure. Looking back, I realize I was too young and naive back then. I mistakenly thought the Simon family could be my support, only to end up with nothing. Not even a proper burial. What I didn't realize was that it was because I had no backing, no claws to show, that they treated me with such disdain. Now that I've been reborn, knowing the outcome of so many things in advance, why wait? I must escape while I'm still free. As soon as I leave this family, distance myself from that scumbag Simon, maybe my life can turn around. After my parents passed away, they left me a sum of money. Renting a place will be more than enough. I've always been a good student. And even when I was treated like a servant in Simon's family, my grades never dropped. In this life, with no external interference, I'm confident that getting into university won't be hard. Once I get to university, I can live on campus and completely rid myself of the misfortune of my past life. As expected, Simon's mother didn't try to stop me, and didn't even ask if I had found a place to stay. She went straight to the point and asked, "When do you plan to move out?" "As soon as possible." I didn't want to wait and risk complications. So I had already rented a place near the school, and in the past few days, I had packed my things. I didn't have many belongings, so it was easy to pack everything. I just needed to inform the Simon family, and then leave. When she saw that I wasn't trying to play hard to get, she feigned sympathy, and said, "It's not that I don't want to keep you here, but since you and Simon are engaged, you still aren't married. It's not right to live under the same roof without a proper title. People might gossip." Simon's mother didn't dare openly defy Simon's father, so she was finding ways to make me back out on my own. That way, having fulfilled my exertion, even if Simon's father was upset, he wouldn't blame her. After 2 lifetimes, I could see through her little tricks. And since Simon didn't like me, why should I force myself? Having fulfilled my exertion, I don't like Simon, so I don't want to hold him back. I plan to break off the engagement. The kindness from the previous generation doesn't need to be repaid by sacrificing the marriage of the children. When Simon's mother heard this, she was even more pleased. In her eyes, her son deserved nothing less than a heavenly goddess as a wife. And since I was an orphan, I wouldn't be able to help him in the future. If it weren't for the fear of being criticized, she would have never looked down on me. Now that I had voluntarily proposed the breakup, her family wouldn't have to bear the reputation of being ungrateful. "I knew you were a sensible child. Since you've decided, let's do it as you say." I immediately took out the token given to me by the Simon family when we were engaged and exchanged it for my family's ancestral jade pendant. When Simon's father saw me suddenly packing my bags, he was momentarily stunned. "You were living fine here. What's this about?" He immediately realized what was happening and turned to Simon's mother, shouting, "Is it you who wants to drive her away?" It seemed clear he knew Simon's mother didn't like me. To avoid further complications, I quickly explained, "I'm moving out on my own. Uncle, I really appreciate all your care, but I'm an adult now and can take care of myself. I also need to focus on preparing for the college entrance exam. So I rented a place closer to school." Hearing this, Simon's father seemed to relax a bit. "If you're lacking anything, just tell us, and Simon can bring it over to you." Simon's father was kind and honest, but sadly, good people don't always get good outcomes. Thinking about how he would eventually die from stomach cancer in the future, I felt a pang of guilt. "Uncle, please remember to eat on time. And don't let your illness get worse." I wasn't cold-hearted or without compassion. I wouldn't take my anger out on the innocent. Simon's father nodded eagerly, agreeing, "Ah, good child. I could see the flicker of emotion in his eyes. And my heart was filled with mixed feelings. After bidding farewell to Simon's family, I finally felt as though a great weight had been lifted from my chest. For the next few months, I devoted myself entirely to studying, shutting out everything else. In my previous life, because Simon and I were engaged, he and Wendy had at least kept their relationship discreet. But in this life, after I broke off the engagement early, Simon became so giddy with freedom that he began openly dating Wendy at school. It didn't take long for the school to find out. Fortunately for him, Wendy didn't betray him to save herself, otherwise Simon could have been charged with hooliganism and sent to prison to work the sewing machines. Those were the years of strict crackdowns. Such a charge could mean several years in jail or even a firing squad. Wendy claimed their relationship had been consensual, so the school didn't call the police. Even so, the scandal was too damaging. Both of them were expelled. That only made Simon more convinced that Wendy was his true love. He swore he'd never let her go again. But Wendy's parents weren't having it. They stormed into the Simon household. Furious, having so failed like say, "Your son ruined our daughter's reputation. He has to marry her right now properly. With a bride price. And the full set of 3 rounds and a sound." Simon's mother, who had pinned all her hopes on her son getting into college, was livid. Her dreams of him becoming a university student were shattered by this foolish affair. And now, on top of everything, Wendy's family was demanding a fortune outrageous. The nerve of them, she fumed. My poor son, such a good seedling for higher education, ruined by that girl. She beat her chest and wept as if at a funeral, cursing Wendy as though she could tear her apart. Wendy's mother wasn't about to back down. "You make it sound like your son's a saint. It takes two to tango. My daughter's the one who's been wronged here. My boy's shy as a lamb, he blushes just talking to girls. It must have been your daughter who seduced him. Oh, wonderful. We haven't even sued your son for indecency. And you dare to turn around and play the victim?" The shouting escalated into shoving. And soon the two mothers were wrestling on the floor. In the chaos, Simon's mother fell and broke her leg. After that, there was no avoiding a sit-down. Simon's grandfather agreed to the marriage, but his mother flatly refused to pay a dowry. Wendy had 2 younger brothers, and she was sure not a single penny of the bride price would ever make it into Simon's household. How ironic, she had once thought Wendy wasn't good enough for her son. Now, even as she despised her, she couldn't stop her son from clinging to that girl. In those days, a young woman's reputation was everything. Once ruined, no one else would dare to marry her. And worse, Wendy was already pregnant. Characters are adults in this story. If they kept dragging it out, she'd start showing soon. Wendy's family had no choice but to compromise. I wouldn't have known any of this if Simon's father hadn't come to explain it to me himself. He looked awkward, remorseful. "Look what a mess this has become," he sighed. "You were supposed to be our daughter-in-law. Our family's really done you wrong." He wasn't a bad man. I could see he truly felt guilty. He wanted to repay my father's kindness but didn't know how, and now his son had made everything worse. "Please don't say that, Uncle," I told him gently. "This is a new era. Arranged marriages are illegal now, and forced love never lasts. If they truly care for each other, you should give them your blessing. Child, our family has wronged you deeply. But no matter what, you'll always be like a daughter to us. If you ever need help, you come to me. I'll do whatever I can." I believed him, his sincerity was real. But I no longer wanted anything to do with the Simons. When he left, I noticed he'd quietly left an envelope on the table. Inside was 300 yuan. He must have meant it as compensation. I accepted it without hesitation. In my previous life, I died so unjustly. I had married Simon, yet his family never gave a single cent of bride price. Later, he even tricked me out of the inheritance my parents had left me to support Wendy's comfortable life. This time, taking a little interest on that debt seemed more than fair. Perhaps it was because I had been reborn. But many things were already changing. In my past life, I'd given up the college entrance exam to care for Simon's mother after she broke her leg. Now, it was Wendy who had to rush into a hasty wedding, and, with her swollen belly, nurse her new mother-in-law. Simon, expelled and idle, grew irritable and unstable. The two of them quarreled constantly, often over the smallest things. But none of that was my concern anymore. Soon, when at a lull summer, the college entrance exams arrived. I walked into the exam hall full of confidence, certain that a new future was waiting for me. Meanwhile, Wendy, after less than a month caring for Simon's mother, was already growing impatient. Even a devoted child finds it hard to care for the sick long term, let alone a pregnant woman who wasn't even fully accepted as a daughter-in-law. Her hormones raged. And one day she snapped at Simon. Your family raised Susie for so many years. And now that your mother's leg is broken, she doesn't even bother to visit? What an ungrateful wretch. Even if their engagement's off, she's still your family's foster daughter. Can't she come help for a while? Wendy ranted on, completely forgetting how Simon's mother had broken her leg in the first place. Simon, spoiled since childhood, had never lifted a finger for anyone. He certainly wasn't going to take care of his mother now. And since he lacked both backbone and self-awareness, Wendy's words quickly swayed him. The two of them decided to come find me, to drag me down with them if they could. When they showed up at my door unannounced, I couldn't help but laugh in disbelief. Susie, don't you have any conscience? Simon demanded. You ate our food, lived in our house for years. And now that my mom needs care, you disappear? Exactly. Wendy chimed in. Even if you and Simon broke off the engagement, his parents treated you well. The least you can do is visit his mother. A cold smile tugged at my lips. Treated me well? You mean by making me give up my future to serve them, only to be tossed aside like trash when they were done? If memory served, it was she, Wendy, who'd fought tooth and nail for this very role. To care for her beloved's mother. To play the dutiful daughter-in-law. And now, after just a few days, she couldn't take it anymore? Trying to guilt-trip me into taking her place? How laughable. But I was no longer the naive fool I once was. Tell me, I asked calmly, my tone like ice. Was it me who broke Simon's mother's leg? Caught off guard by my counterattack, Wendy was instantly at a loss for words. But I had no intention of letting her off easily. I kept pressing forward, voice sharp as a blade. You're already married to Simon. As his wife, shouldn't you be at home caring for your mother-in-law instead of coming here to pester me? What exactly are you trying to prove? Susie, how can you speak so harshly? Simon snapped, rushing to defend his wife. If you think I'm harsh, then why are you both so eager to come and provoke me? Why have you become so vicious? He shot back, clearly losing his composure. Within a few exchanges, I had them both completely flustered. They soon ran out of retorts and began resorting to personal attacks. Simon, for a man, you're truly pathetic. Since our engagement's already broken off, stop clinging to me. Don't pretend your mother's illness is an excuse. What you really want is for me to serve your family again. Isn't it? I tore off their masks without mercy. Simon's expression turned awkward. Trying to recover, he said weakly. That's not what I meant. It's just that you've been living away for so long. The family misses you. Oh, spare me. I sneered. For the first time, Simon saw a side of me he had never imagined. A version of me with claws and teeth. No longer meek and compliant. It unsettled him. Wendy and Simon left my place humiliated, seething with anger. When they returned home, Simon's mother, thinking they'd gone on a date, immediately flew into a rage. Wendy, have you no shame? Can't you be apart from my son for even a moment? I told you to take care of the patient, not to go fooling around with him. Wendy, already furious from earlier, completely lost her temper. After days of tending to Simon's mother, she'd been stretched to her limit. Now she exploded like a live firecracker. Why don't you go out and ask around? Mother? What pregnant daughter-in-law serves her mother-in-law like a maid? Can't I even go out for some air? Oh, so now you're the victim? Simon's mother shouted, suddenly springing up from the bed in fury. Her leg, supposedly broken, was perfectly fine. You want to know how my leg was hurt? It's all because of you. You're a walking curse. Ever since you seduced my son, our family's been nothing but unlucky. If it weren't for you, My son wouldn't have been expelled. If it weren't for you. Susie wouldn't have broken off her engagement. If it were Susie. She'd never complain about a bit of housework like you do. People would think I'm an evil mother-in-law abusing you. Wendy stood there dumbfounded. She finally realized Simon's mother had been faking her injury all along. Pretending to be sick just to control her. I only learned this later. Through gossip. And it made me realize that. In my previous life. Simon's mother might have been pretending the whole time. She had fooled me into a lifetime of servitude. Making me willingly slave away for their family. In the end. I had been nothing but a naughty poor fool. An easy target for manipulation. Simon. Your mother's been pretending all this time. Wendy stammered. This time. Even Simon couldn't defend her. Mom. How could you do this? This is too much. But Simon's mother. Once exposed. Immediately switched tactics. Playing the victim instead. Oh, my life is so bitter. The son gets married. And suddenly he forgets his own mother. Mom. How can you say that? Simon groaned. Torn with guilt. No matter what happens. I'll never abandon you. It took every ounce of his strength to pacify the two women. But within just a few days. Simon's mother and Wendy were at each other's throats again over another trivial matter. Simon was exhausted caught between them. He dreaded going home each night. Soon, to wind out a low sigh. The college entrance exam results came out. I had scored several dozen points above the admission cutoff for first-tier universities. When it came time to choose schools, I decisively filled in my application for a university in U City. It wasn't just because the city was far from Yun City, and thus far from Simon forever. It was also because I knew that in the coming decades, U City would be at the forefront of China's reform and opening up. I wouldn't just change my fate through knowledge. I would seize every opportunity that came my way. As expected, I was admitted. I threw myself into my studies, earning scholarships every year. During college, I even obtained a few research patents. Between that and part-time jobs, every day of my life was full and purposeful. The city was developing rapidly, attracting people from all over the country to start businesses. Because of language barriers, many misunderstandings and losses occurred. So I began offering translation services to bridge that gap, charging modest fees for my work. It was an innovative idea for that era. Though I didn't charge much, the steady stream of clients made up for it. Soon, when on a low sigh, I earned my first real fortune. With that money, I rented a small storefront and opened a fast food restaurant catering to migrant workers, while still taking on translation jobs on the side. By then, Simon and Wendy had been married for some time and already had a daughter. Simon's mother, furious that Wendy hadn't borne a son, began urging her to have another child before she even finished her postpartum confinement. Meanwhile, under his father's arrangements, Simon had gotten a job at a chemical factory. But spoiled by years of comfort, he found the work too dirty and tiring. He slacked off constantly, skipping days and ignoring his duties. His supervisors were already dissatisfied. At home, he had to face daily quarrels between Wendy and his mother. Trapped between them, Simon was stretched thin. And in a moment of distraction, he mixed the wrong proportions for a batch of fertilizer, causing significant losses to the factory. This time, there was no way his superiors would keep him. So, after being fired, Simon saw how others were getting rich through business. Driven by greed and desperation, he stole his father's savings, bought a train ticket with a few friends, and set out for U City. But they had no plan. Just a few foolish dreamers chasing fortune. Before they even arrived, pickpockets cleaned them out. Their money was gone. Immediately, the others lost heart. Our funds are gone. What business can we even start now? Yeah. We should just go back. But Simon refused. If you want to go back, go. I won't. I'd rather die out here than return empty-handed. And so, the others parted ways with him, leaving Simon to face the city and his fate alone. Simon had finally arrived in U City, surrounded by people speaking in a language he didn't understand. His vision blurred, and he stood there, dumbfounded. Luckily, he had kept his money in separate pockets, and some of it hadn't been stolen. But as soon as he got off the train, He was cornered by a group of local thugs in an alley. As expected, disaster struck. Simon refused to hand over the last of his money. And for that, he was beaten mercilessly. Left lying in a pile of trash. When he came to, his clothes were stripped off, leaving him with nothing but the ragged remnants of old woven bags, which he used to cover himself. Starving, he had no choice but to beg for food on the streets. By chance, he ended up right in front of my restaurant. That day, I was just leaving after seeing off a guest when I spotted him. I couldn't believe my eyes. "Susie, is it really you?" he asked, looking at me with a dazed expression. I stared at the beggar in front of me, confused for a moment, until I recognized him. "Why are you here?" I asked, still trying to make sense of the situation. I took a closer look and realized it was Simon, though it was hard to believe. He used to be quite the dashing figure. Tall and handsome, standing out in a crowd. No wonder Wendy had been so head over heels for him. Seeing my astonishment, Simon quickly rubbed his face and messed with his disheveled hair, trying to appear normal. "Ah, long story. Can you at least spare me a meal?" It was clear that he was starving. At this point, I couldn't just ignore him. So I had one of the staff prepare a bowl of knife-cut noodles for him. Simon devoured the food hungrily, then remembered to ask, "Aren't you supposed to be in college?" I gave him a faint smile, well aware that he wasn't actually concerned about where I went to school. "My school's in U City," I replied. Simon let out an incredulous "oh," still unable to believe it. To people who thought they'd never cross paths again had met by sheer coincidence. What kind of karmic connection was this? "So are you working here to pay your way through school?" "I guess you could say that," I answered curtly, not wanting to go into detail. I was eager to end the conversation. "Boss, that table still hasn't paid their bill." A staff called me, and I quickly had to switch roles and handle the service. Simon froze when he heard someone call me boss, his jaw dropping in shock. Gradually, meanwhile, he started to feel insecure. Back when I lived with his family, he had always looked down on me, acting as though he were on a higher pedestal. Now, he couldn't even hold a candle to me. His heart was filled with mixed emotions. He thought about his chaotic family, and then looked at how well I was doing now. It felt surreal, as though it were all a dream. "Susie, you've changed." "Really?" I chuckled. "Maybe you never really knew me at all." With that, I made an excuse that I had other things to attend to and walked away. I didn't feel the need to offer any judgment or guidance on his situation. In truth, I had long since come to terms with everything that had happened. I had the staff give him some travel money before leaving. 2 years later, I returned to my hometown to pay respects to my parents. My high school classmates spoke of Simon. After returning from U City, Simon's mother was furious that all the money he'd brought with him had been stolen. And worse, he'd been beaten. She took out her anger on his friends, storming their homes and cursing them for days. After that, Simon was left without a single friend. Meanwhile, Wendy had given birth to a daughter. Simon's mother started blaming her, calling her a bad omen, and saying anyone who married her would be cursed. When Simon heard that I had graduated from university in U City and become a business owner, his mother was filled with regret. "Look at Susie. She's a big boss now. And you can't even get her to have a son. What's the point of our Simon family having you? All you do is stir up trouble with men. What else are you good for?" The more Simon's mother complained, the angrier she got. "If I'd known, I never would have let Simon marry you." Their arguments became so heated that Simon couldn't stand it anymore. He had long been tired of the constant bickering at home. "Blame me for not giving you a son? It's your son who's useless. Wendy, look at you now. You're nothing but a shrew. Not even close to Susie's level." Hearing this, Wendy exploded like a firecracker. "Are you still thinking about Susie?" she shouted. Every day, the house was filled with shouting and chaos. Simon didn't want to come home anymore. Looking at his current situation, he regretted everything. If only he had married me back then, maybe things wouldn't have turned out like this. In his frustration, he muttered, "Fine. That's exactly what I mean. Are you happy now?" Wendy, in a fit of rage, screamed, Good. Don't you dare regret it. She stormed off, grabbing their infant and pulling their older child along with her. I wasn't sure who spread the word about my return to Yen City. But Simon didn't chase after Wendy. Instead, he blocked me at the entrance of the guest house. He stared at me, dressed in my most fashionable wool coat, knee-high boots, and my hair in large, glamorous waves, looking like a star from a magazine cover. Simon stood frozen for a moment before finally speaking. Susie, you've changed so much. Thank you for helping me out in U City. I smiled coldly. Well, I wouldn't let a stranger die in front of me. No need to thank me. Susie, are you still angry at me for abandoning you and marrying Wendy? I gave a sarcastic laugh. You're thinking too much. It's not about who I marry, it's about me deciding I don't need you. I don't care who you marry. My words left Simon speechless. And he suddenly felt ashamed. Susie, I heard you're still single. If you want, I can divorce Wendy right now. I couldn't believe he was still trying to use that line. Did he think that just because I was single, I was still pining for him? What a joke. I simply refused to put my future in the hands of a man again. He hadn't changed at all. He didn't want to be with Wendy because he left me. He wanted me back because it was easier than facing the mess he created. Simon had always been selfish. Ah, so you've been fighting with me all this time. But your heart was never really with us three, was it? Before I could respond, Wendy caught him red-handed. She was holding their youngest in her arms, pulling their eldest by the hand. She looked like a furious, storming version of Kinsey Anglian. Originally, heading Kaufeld session, Wendy had planned to return to her parents' home. But as soon as she stepped out the door, regret overwhelmed her. Since marrying Simon, nothing had gone smoothly at home. Her mother-in-law was tight-fisted with money, and her own family could no longer benefit from her. Now, she felt as if she were caught between a rock and a hard place, trapped in a situation where no one respected her. The thought of going back to her parents' house only filled her with the fear of scorn and mockery. With a heavy heart, Wendy turned back around and headed home, only to find Simon walking out the door as well. Quietly, heading so fieldly, she followed him, and before long, she found herself at the doorstep of the guest house, overhearing a heated conversation. Without warning, Wendy started shouting at Simon, throwing punches that left his head bloodied. The two children, standing nearby, started crying helplessly, unable to understand what was happening. Simon, furious beyond measure, couldn't take it anymore. Embarrassed, he slapped Wendy across the face. The idealized image of his first love had long since crumbled, reduced to nothing but a rancid rice grain clinging to his clothes. You dare hit me? I'll fight you to the death. Wendy wasn't about to let herself be outdone, quickly unleashing her fury. They both fell into a violent struggle. You're nothing but a shrew. Wendy, I must have been blind to marry someone like you. You think you can get rid of me so easily? You scoundrel? It was as if everything she feared had come true. A crowd of onlookers quickly gathered, their attention drawn to the scene. I slipped on my sunglasses and made a swift exit from the crime scene. From that day forward, Simon and Wendy's relationship descended into chaos, with arguments and fights breaking out almost constantly. To secure her place in Simon's family, Wendy focused relentlessly on having a son. But the more she wanted it, the further it seemed to slip away. After 5 daughters, she finally reached a breaking point. Simon, feeling lost without a son, became increasingly irritable. He spent his days indulging in laziness, drinking and gambling. Wendy's every word resulted in blows and insults. Simon's mother, meanwhile, treated her even more harshly, constantly criticizing her inability to bear a son and suggesting Simon divorce her and remarry. The tension between mother-in-law and daughter-in-law continued to escalate. Then, without a low sigh, after one particularly explosive argument, Simon's mother suffered a stroke and was left bedridden. Suddenly, Wendy found herself not only caring for 5 young children but also tending to a bedridden mother-in-law. By the time she was in her 30s, worn down by overwork and malnutrition, she looked like someone twice her age. Meanwhile, Simon, accustomed to a life of comfort, avoided going home as much as possible. He'd spend all his time at the Mothorn parlors, only coming home to eat and sleep. A few times, Wendy stormed into the parlors with her children, flipping over the Mothorn tables and engaging in public brawls with Simon. The scene would often spiral out of control, with their 5 children crying uncontrollably, making the onlookers feel pity for them. This vicious cycle continued for over a decade. Finally, heading so wide sigh. One day, after another unannounced trip, Simon disappeared for good, never to return. And I, too, never returned to Yen City. I severed all ties with that place, even bringing my parents' ancestral tablets with me to U City. Over the years, I focused entirely on my career. Starting from a small, modest restaurant, I grew it into a fast food chain, eventually founding my own catering company. After seeing Simon once at the restaurant, I handed the business over to a professional manager to run. By this point, it was the 1990s, and based on the knowledge I carried from my past life, I invested my funds in the stock market, making a substantial fortune. With that capital, I founded a technology company and recruited top talent, diving into the tech industry. Thanks to my memories from the past, every project I invested in turned out to be highly profitable, with each one leading the industry. Gradually, my tech company caught the attention of the government, and we were eventually brought into the military-industrial sector. One day, Simon, somehow finding out about my company, showed up just as I was preparing to negotiate with a military representative, Dylan. As I spoke with Dylan in a poised, professional manner, stepping into the military's red flag car, Simon froze, his legs seemingly nailed to the ground. In that moment, he finally understood the vast difference between us. He had missed his chance with the best woman he would ever meet. In fact, the military had been keeping an eye on my company for years, conducting thorough investigations before finally making their move. I had no more attachments, and after the negotiations, I decisively joined the national team. From then on, I lived in secrecy, dedicating the rest of my life to the country. There were several critical moments during experiments where life and death hung in the balance, but I held firm, completing them despite the risks. This life no longer bound by trivial love and affection became a path where my fate was intertwined with the nation's century-long transformation. I had never felt more valuable, more alive. Though I risked death, I would never regret it. And Dylan, the military representative, had become my closest comrade. Through years of cooperation and communication, we discovered many shared interests and goals. As time passed, we naturally grew closer. Years later, we found ourselves together, and our story became one of military legend. Years later, after many of our tech projects had contributed to strengthening the country's defense, Dylan and I passed the baton to the younger generation, confident in the future we had helped build. That year, Dylan accompanied me back to my hometown, invited by my alma mater. The provincial governor and the mayor of Yen City personally welcomed us as we revisited familiar places. Upon seeing my old neighborhood, now replaced by towering buildings, and my former high school, which had relocated to a new campus, it felt as if I were walking through a different lifetime. Just as we left the school grounds, an old man in tattered clothes suddenly rushed towards us. The security guards quickly restrained him. Soon, and hide out a low sigh, an elderly woman walked over with an apologetic look, whispering in a strained voice, "I'm sorry. He's not in his right mind. He's old and confused." The children muttered complaints as they dragged him away. "Didn't he forget to take his medicine again? He refuses to go to the mental hospital, even after he hit someone 2 days ago. If he causes any more trouble, we'll be finished." The old woman cried helplessly. "What can I do? It's not free to stay in the hospital. You know." The old man suddenly erupted in a fit of mania when he heard the mention of a hospital. "I won't go. I'm not sick. You all just want to keep me from finding Susie." I barely heard my name being called. I looked around, puzzled, and finally realized that the old man was Simon, and the woman was Wendy. They stood before me, and yet I had failed to recognize them immediately. Somehow, Simon recognized me and refused to leave. His eyes filled with endless regret and resentment. What's going on? Dylan noticed my shift in demeanor and asked with concern. I turned to him with a small smile. Nothing. Just saw someone I used to know. But it doesn't matter anymore. End of the story. During our divorce cooling off period, my husband suddenly refused to go through with it. He tore up the divorce papers, held my hand, and choked out, "Claire, I was reborn. In my past life, I didn't realize how much I loved you until after you left. You can't leave me." I slowly, deliberately pulled my hand from his grasp, enunciating each word. "But I don't love you anymore." Julian didn't believe I had stopped loving him. He tightened his grip on my hand. The pain made me try to pull away, but he held on even tighter. "Claire, I don't believe you don't love me." His expression was full of sorrow, as though he truly lost the love of his life. "You have no idea how much I love you. We've known each other since childhood for 20 years. We've been married for 3. I refuse to believe you could just let me go after only a few months." He spoke with absolute certainty, convinced I still loved him. Unable to break free, I turned my gaze toward the floor-to-ceiling windows in the office. Winter was coming. Outside the building, the wind howled. Yellow leaves rustled across the pavement just like the chill in my heart. "But you're the one who betrayed me." Julian froze, panic flashing across his handsome face. Seizing the moment, I yanked my hand away with all my strength. My pale wrist had already turned red and sore from his grip. "I can explain. Claire. That vile woman tricked me. She always pretended to be pure and innocent. After our divorce in the previous life, I finally saw her true colors. She was only after my money and she betrayed me too." I slapped him. His head jerked to the side, a red mark blooming on his pale cheek. I stared coldly at his disheveled, still handsome face, my heart surging with hatred. "Need me to remind you? You cheated. Your little mistress is pregnant. Don't be disgusting." I laughed. Under his panicked gaze, I said softly, "Remember? That's what you said to me." At last, I could return those very words to him. I once caught Julian cheating. It was in a KTV private room. I had rushed over after receiving a text, never expecting to witness this. There was Julian, holding a girl in his arms, smiling lazily, kissing her now and then. The room was filled with flirtatious energy until I walked in. I rushed up to pull him away, only to be harshly flung aside. I staggered back several steps, almost falling. The girl in his arms wore a white dress. He shielded her closely, and her delicate, pretty face peeked out from his embrace, smiling at me provocatively. Julian frowned at me, scolding. "Claire, apologize. Claire, can you stop acting like a shrew? We've been together for so long. Don't you feel tired? I just want a little freedom now. Can't you give me space? I still love you. Can't you just turn a blind eye? Don't be disgusting." The moment those words left his lips, everyone in the room looked at me with either pity or mockery. My ankle, twisted from his push, throbbed with pain, holding back tears. I lifted my head and asked, "You're the one who cheated. What gives you the right to turn this around on me?" That was, without a doubt, the most humiliating and pathetic moment of my life. Julian seemed to recall it, to his face turned deathly pale. His lips moved, but no rebuttal came out. All he could do was stare at me in defeat and desperation. I didn't believe his nonsense about reincarnation. More likely, he and the mistress had a fight, and now he remembered how good he had it with me. I opened the office door. "Please leave. I've already filed for divorce. If you barge into my office again, I'll call the police." Julian instinctively protested. "No, believe me, we're not getting divorced. Just wait. I'll fix everything. Just wait for me." Watching his retreating figure, I felt an unprecedented wave of disgust. A man who betrays his marriage has no right to beg for another chance. And it's exactly because we had been together for so long that his betrayal cuts so deeply. In the middle of the night, I received a call from an unknown number. The voice on the other end was hoarse and reeking of alcohol. "Wife too. I miss you so much. Can you come get me?" It was Julian. I had blocked all his contacts. I didn't realize it was him when the call came in. We're about to be divorced. No, I won't let it happen. I love you. I don't want to lose you. I'll tell you a secret, I really did come back from a past life. I agreed to the divorce back then. And afterward, every single day without you was unbearable. Julian said his biggest regret was agreeing to the divorce. That by the time he wanted to get back together, I refused to give him even a sliver of a chance. Claire, we shared so many years together. How can you just walk away? No matter how hard I tried, how desperately I chased after you, you wouldn't even look back. Claire, how can you be so heartless? He cried on the other end of the line. Wife, please don't leave me. Just give me one last chance. Okay? I exhaled softly, almost inaudibly. It was as if Julian heard it and latched on. We have so many beautiful memories. So many years together. Claire, can't you hold on to that? Okay? No. I refuse. Julian and I were childhood sweethearts. Growing up together. We were never apart. And all of our important moments were spent in each other's company. Even when I was just a child. The elders would tease us, saying we were destined to be a couple in the future. It turned out to be a prophecy. We really did become a couple. Right after the college entrance exams. He came to me with a bouquet of bright roses and confessed. The summer breeze was gentle. The boy wore a white t-shirt. And his hair was cropped short, a buzz cut he had specially toes and during senior year. He looked handsome and spirited. He gave me a big grin. Then quickly looked away, shyly avoiding my gaze. Claire, I've liked you for a long time, many years now. Let's be together. I'll treat you well. Trust me. My heart was full of joy. I pressed my lips together, my cheeks burning, and nodded lightly. He had secretly liked me for years, and hadn't I done the same? We were in love for 6 years. Always affectionate. Though wealthy families often marry for business, our marriage felt just like our dating days. Whenever he had time, he would still come home to cook for me. He never forgot our anniversaries. He'd always prepared gifts in advance. He called me my good girl and said he would love me for a lifetime. I was so sure we would be this happy forever. I even imagined us growing old together, turning into a white-haired elderly couple. Our friends always teased us, saying we were the most loving couple in our circle, just like characters from a romance novel, destined to stay happy together. But by the 3rd year of marriage, I started noticing that he was getting busier, either away on business trips or on his way to one. And he was becoming more impatient with me. When I tentatively asked, "You're going on another 3-month trip? Can't you stay home a bit longer? You just got back, huh?" He exploded. His face darkened, and he slammed the contract he was signing onto the floor. His eyes were cold as he shouted, "Yes, Aviv too. We're married. But I still need freedom. Can you stop being so controlling? You're suffocating me. Do you understand?" I stared at him in shock, my eyes slowly turning red. Julian seemed to realize he'd gone too far. He softened his tone, patted my head, and said gently, "You have to understand me. I'm busy with work. You should change a little too. Don't always want to cling to me." That night, he still went on his business trip. He took with him that clumsy intern he always talked about. And that night, I found out that my husband of 3 years, my childhood sweetheart, had been cheating on me. At first, when I saw Leela's posts on Weibo, I thought it was absurd. Leela was a mildly famous relationship blogger with tens of thousands of followers. Her name was familiar, Julian had mentioned her several times. She was the new summer intern, clumsy, and always talking back, constantly causing trouble for him. I'd seen her once when I brought Julian some chicken soup during overtime. Her cheeks were red, and she looked innocent and nervous as she glanced at me. "You're President Julian's wife, right? You're exactly like the rumors say, a strong, capable woman. I hope to learn from you." She had smiled sweetly at me. Julian always mentioned her with an irritated tone. "You wouldn't believe what dumb thing that silly intern did today. She's driving me nuts." We were both busy with our respective family businesses. I cherished the time we had together. When he brought her up again one day, I interrupted, annoyed. "Then fire her. If I had an intern who kept messing up my work with clients, I would have fired her a long time ago. Julian looked disgruntled and quickly changed the subject. After that, he never mentioned Leela in front of me again. I thought it was just a small bump in our relationship that he had already gotten rid of the intern who kept giving him headaches. Until one day, I stumbled upon Leela's Weibo. That's when I learned, not only had Julian not fired her, but they had already been together for quite some time. All that so-called annoyance he expressed was just a cover away to hide his real feelings from me. But the more he tried to hide it, the more obvious it became that he had fallen for her. He spent lavishly to buy her a house, a secret love nest. On her Weibo, Julian was mature, dependable, and always taking care of her, clumsy, self-indulgent and gentle. Even when she made serious mistakes at work and everyone thought she was about to be fired, Julian protected her. Wah! Julian is such a great boss. I thought I was done for this time. But he stood up for me and saved me. One night I was in danger and called Julian. He drove across half the city to find me. He blamed himself for not protecting me. On Valentine's Day, I confessed to Julian. He said yes. It was the happiest day of my life. The comments were full of blessings. Everyone said that the mature boss and the cute, silly assistant were the perfect match. They were all asking when the wedding would be. Pain surged in my chest like a tide. I almost couldn't stand, nearly collapsing to the ground. I didn't want to believe it. I didn't want to admit that the male lead in this love story was Julian. The man I had grown up with for over 20 years. The man I had married for 3 years. But in Leela's photos of luxury items, I accidentally spotted his wrist. And the blurry silhouette of him cooking in the kitchen, though she never showed his face. I knew it was him instantly. I knew him too well. It turned out that during all the times he had been cold to me, he had already given all his love to someone else. After finding out about the affair, I fell into a pit of deep self-doubt. So many years of love, I couldn't help wondering if it was because I wasn't good enough. Was it my personality? My looks? Was that why Julian fell out of love? Why he fell for someone else? Like a madwoman, I smashed everything in the house. Barefoot, I stood amid the mess, hair disheveled, face pale, like a lost soul with nowhere to go. Julian, without a sigh. What did I do wrong? We've been childhood sweethearts for so many years. We've been married for 3 years. Why did you betray me? He didn't say a word. Just lowered his head and let me vent. I cried until I was exhausted, gasping for breath. Only then did he gently pull me into his arms. His tone was tender, yet cruel. Do you know? What I hate most is our past. Since I was a child, I've never had freedom. I had to live according to my parents' expectations. Even getting married was under their control. I just wanted to breathe, to feel alive. Only when I was with Leela did I feel like I was truly living, like I was free. But Claire, I still love you. Don't worry. Leela won't affect our relationship. I'm just keeping her. That's all. Maybe I still loved Julian. Maybe the sunk cost of our years together was too high. Maybe I just couldn't accept being the loser in this relationship. I tried everything I could to bring him back to our home, to make him cut ties with Leela. I became hysterical, unrecognizable. But all I got in return was his growing indifference. He didn't even come home anymore, choosing instead to live in the apartment he bought for Leela. Leela even added me on WeChat, mocking me. Sis, instead of clinging to someone who doesn't love you, why not set him free? Julian only loves me. The unloved one is the real third party. Julian has had a tough time these past years. Let him go. I'll take good care of him for you. But he was the one who first confessed to me. He was the one who said he loved me. He proposed to me. One day at work, I overheard some employees talking in the break room. Do you think something's wrong with President Claire? She looks so exhausted lately. Yeah. She seems off. She's my role model. You know, so talented, but she's been so absent-minded lately. And I think she's lost her confidence. In the lounge, I stared into the mirror at my pale, haggard reflection like a ghost. This wasn't me. That's when I finally woke up. I'm excellent. Beautiful, capable. I have no reason to feel inferior. I wasn't the one who did something wrong. Julian was. He betrayed our love. I decided I wanted a divorce. The day I mailed the divorce papers. I called him and said clearly, I don't want you anymore. Make sure to sign it. Congratulations, you and your freedom can now fly off into the sunset. I woke up from a dream where I was once again asking Julian for a divorce. My head was pounding as I got up and checked the time. 6 Meet had only been 2 hours since his drunk call in the middle of the night. I lay in bed for a while, but couldn't fall back asleep. So I got up and washed my face. I stared blankly at the mirror. The woman inside was pale, but her eyes were bright. I forced a smile. I couldn't help but think of the way I lost control when I found out about Julian's affair, not just once, but again and again, demanding explanations like a mat. It all felt like another lifetime. I splashed cold water on my face, trying to snap myself back to reality. I believed that in time, I'd fully move on. What I didn't expect was that when I opened the living room curtains, there it was. A familiar black car. Julian stood in front of it in casual clothes, a cigarette between his fingers. His handsome face filled with impatience. Sensing something, he looked up, our eyes met. Then he smiled brightly. Good morning, baby. He mouthed. I love you. Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. I yanked the curtains shut, nauseated to the point of dry heaving. When I went downstairs to leave for work, my face was pale and ashen. Julian, Nimo Karao, reeking of alcohol, rushed over like a pitiful puppy, eager but cautious. Are you hungry? I made breakfast. Want to try some? Heading to the office? I'll drive you. We're wearing you out lately? You've lost weight. I took a deep breath and stopped in my tracks, glaring at him. Haven't you had enough? You think I'll feel sorry for you now? I said it clearly on the phone, there's no going back. You broke me first. I can't forgive that. He looked down, lips pressed tight, eyes lowered like a scolded dog. I just want to tell you that I love you, that I want one more chance. I mean it. I let out a laugh, shaking my head at the sheer absurdity. Why should I give you a chance? You were the one who cheated. You said you were tired of me, that I was suffocating you, that you'd fallen for someone else. Now I'm finally giving you the freedom you begged for, and you say you're in love with me? Julian, I can't believe I didn't realize how shameless you are. I turned to leave, but his voice trembled behind me. Believe it or not, I really did come back from another life. I love you. After I lost you, I couldn't live anymore. You left me in my last life, and I almost lost my mind. I didn't even glance back. I responded the same way he had to me before. Then go die. Back when I threatened and suicide to make him cut things off with Leela, he told me to die too. Worried he didn't hear clearly, I kindly repeated, go ahead. Just don't die in front of me. Behind me. He snapped. His voice turned manic, each word forced out between clenched teeth. No, I can't. If I lose Claire, I'll be alone again. Everyone will leave me. I can't let the company go under. I can't get divorced. I thought I'd misheard. My steps faltered. I didn't expect that after Julian showed up that morning. By the afternoon my secretary would call, stammering, President Claire, there's a Miss Gu downstairs demanding to see you. In the background, I could hear a girl yelling. When the elevator doors opened on the first floor, I saw Leela surrounded by security. She kept trying to push through to the elevator, but was blocked each time. Furious, Kevin fulfilled my sigh. She screamed in the crowded lobby. Where is Claire? I want to see her. Tell her to come down right now. She's just a bitch. She must have said something to Julian. Or else why would he suddenly not want me anymore? She spotted me immediately. Her beautiful face twisted with hatred as she stared at me. Claire, what did you say to Julian? Why did he suddenly say he wants to cut ties with me, and even take back everything he spent on me? You bitch. She tried to lunge at me, to hit me, but the security guards held her back tightly, not letting her move. She could only glare at me with eyes full of hatred. Everyone in the lobby pretended to be busy, but in reality, they were all eavesdropping on us. Hearing her shameless words, I couldn't help but laugh. If I remember correctly, Julian and I are still legally married, right? You're just a mistress. Where do you get the face to make a scene in front of me? You're the other woman. Everything you spent was marital property between Julian and me. How can you shamelessly enjoy it like that? Her face turned red with fury. And when she noticed the disdain and whispers from everyone around, her expression grew even more vicious as she looked at me. What are you doing here? Leela's face lit up when she turned around and saw Julian. She looked pitiful and said, Julian, I really love you. Please don't leave me. I only have you, you know that. But Julian didn't even glance at her. Instead, he strode directly toward me. Are you okay? I gave the security guards a look. And they immediately and dutifully blocked Julian from getting close to me. Julian, control your mistress. Until the divorce papers are finalized. Don't let her appear in front of me again. It was only then that he seemed to finally notice Leela's presence. He frowned and asked, Why are you here? Leela's eyes turned red as she bit her lip. I missed you. Julian. Why don't you want me anymore? She threw herself into Julian's arms. Crying pitifully. You said you'd love me. That you'd always be with me. Without you, I can't live too. I couldn't help but laugh. My voice full of mockery. Cheaters and mistresses should go reminisce somewhere else. Get out. Julian's face darkened. The affection in his eyes when he looked at Leela had vanished, replaced by disgust. He shoved her off and pushed her to the ground. I made it clear yesterday. We're done. He turned to me. Anxious. Explaining. She lied to me. She pretended to be innocent and naive. Said she couldn't live without me. You had everything: money, a career, your family's love. I just felt sorry for her. That's all. Don't worry. I've cut things off with her. I'll make her give back everything I spent on her. He looked at me nervously, pleading. Give me another chance. Okay? After all these years together. I'm serious now. I've already dealt with her. Julian looked at me pitifully. But I didn't feel the slightest bit of sympathy. I looked at him with a blank expression and said coldly, I'll say it again. I don't love you anymore. I've already filed for divorce. Before he could say another word, I told security to throw both of them out. Julian's gaze was intense. I'll prove to you that I'm sincere. I rolled my eyes. When I was once consumed with self-blame, desperately trying to win him back, he loathed me. And now that I don't love him anymore, now he wants to prove his love? On the elevator ride up, I told my assistant. Send me the lobby surveillance footage later. I handed the entire divorce case over to my lawyer. After Leela caused that scene at the company, I sent the surveillance video to several mutual friends. They all lashed out at Julian and took turns urging him to divorce me. Julian ignored them all. With red eyes. He just mumbled. But I love her. I just made a small mistake. If she forgives me, I'll make it up to Claire double. That enraged everyone. One friend pointed at him and shouted, I can't believe you. I used to think you were a responsible man. And this is how you treat Claire? You're the one who cheated. Flaunting your mistress in public. Stepping all over Claire. Now you say you regret it? Too late. From then on, Julian kept showing up around me. Bringing me flowers. Gifts, I'd leave too. Breakfast. I rejected him every single time without mercy. I even hired two bodyguards. The moment he got close, I would drive him away. But he still didn't give up. One day, he even showed up at my home. When I came back from work and saw him kneeling in the living room, with my parents sitting on the couch looking furious, I lost my patience and exploded. Julian, you're the one who cheated. Who are you trying to guilt trip now? My parents had always supported my decisions. From the moment I told them he had cheated, they backed my decision to divorce. Julian had grown up under their roof, treated like family. But now, their warmth had turned to coldness. He knelt on the ground, and they stared at him with frosty eyes, not even letting him get up. When I came in, my parents stood up and gave us space to talk. Before my dad went upstairs to the study, he looked at me and said solemnly, no matter what you decide, your mom and I will support you. A wave of warmth swept through me. I looked down at the man kneeling on the ground. I said each word slowly and clearly, the child died. You didn't even know. I don't love you anymore. Can't you just stay out of my life? Hearing this, He lowered his eyes and said softly, "Claire, in my last life, after you left, every day was agony. Thank God I got to live again this time. We're not divorced yet. There's still time to fix everything. I mean it this time. I'll do anything if you'll forgive me. Hit me. Yell at me. I don't care. Just don't leave me." I took a sip of tea and looked at Julian carefully. He had become haggard, his beard unshaven, face pale. Clothes that once fit perfectly now hung loosely on him. His whole body radiated defeat and misery. But as I looked at his face, I couldn't feel any of the affection I once had. All I felt was revulsion. This was the man who single and action destroyed the relationship we'd built over decades. I cut him off. "You said you were reborn. I don't believe you." "It's true," he insisted. "Then what happened after we divorced in your last life?" I asked, chuckling. "It must have been something awful. Right? Because when I first brought up divorce, you didn't even try to stop me. And now that you've come back, suddenly you can't stop chasing me?" He said nothing. He just looked at me tightly, the sadness and grief overflowing from his dark eyes. "Claire, please, give me one more chance." I suddenly asked him, "If I give you a chance, how would that make up for the pain I went through after discovering your affair? Let's say you really were reborn. If you weren't, wouldn't you have already been happily with Leila by now during the divorce cooling off period?" As his eyes filled with panic and despair, I smiled. "I can't forgive you. Because if I forgive you, then in this relationship, the only one who wronged me would be me." When he left, his steps were unsteady, and his entire body was shrouded in sorrow. He muttered, "If I take care of Leila, will you believe I'm serious?" I soon understood what Julian meant by that. Leila became completely infamous. Julian went mad with revenge, exposing all the evidence of her knowingly becoming a mistress online, even sending it to her school. She was a senior in college, about to graduate. But because of Julian's actions, she might not even get her diploma. She was also an influencer. Her fans, upon discovering that the supposedly pure junior was actually a homewrecker, all unfollowed her and turned on her. Julian even demanded that she pay back every penny he had spent on her within a set deadline. In an instant, her life was completely ruined. No matter where she went, people pointed at her and stared with contempt. Online, she was bombarded with hate from former fans. She called me crying, her tone filled with resentment. "Are you happy now, Claire? Now that I've fallen to this point, are you satisfied? My life is ruined. My parents are ashamed of me and refuse to acknowledge me. I just fell in love with a man. What did I do wrong? Is having feelings such a grave sin?" She shrieked with curses. "You must be so proud now. Right? Playing the long game. And now Julian's falling back in love with you, wanting to return to your side. But think about it, what's the point of going after me? Even without me, there'll be another girl. He'll still cheat. He'll still find someone younger. The rest, think about it, what's the point of going after me? Even without me, there'll be another girl. He'll still cheat. He'll still find someone younger." The rest of her words blurred into vulgar insults and curses. I cut her off. "I didn't forgive him. I'm determined to divorce him. This isn't some strategic retreat." Leila went quiet. A thought she couldn't believe crossed her mind. I confirmed it. "You think I'm taking revenge on you? Why can't you place the blame on the one who started it all?" She hung up with a loud bang. I stared at the screen for a while, then turned off my phone and went back to work. After I blocked several of Julian's numbers, he stopped calling. Instead, he started texting me from different numbers, with a cautious tone and a hint of self-congratulation. "Did you see the news? Leila's completely ruined. Her school's about to expel her. She was the one who affected our relationship. I'll make sure she pays. Just give me another chance. Are you happier now?" I took a deep breath. Clearly, heading fulfilled my obsession. He was the one who wanted revenge. Yet he was trying to pin it all on me. He was the one who cheated. He was the one who couldn't handle the consequences. And now he was outsourcing all the blame. I started to question myself. What exactly did I ever like about him? Why did I once want to live or die for someone like this? I took screenshots of all the texts. Back when I first found out about the affair, I cried and begged him to stay. Leela took every chance to provoke me. She even added me on WeChat just to send taunting photos now and then. So now, I forwarded all of Julian's messages straight to her. With a tap of my finger, I blacklisted her account. With only 3 days left in the divorce cooling off period, the long silent Leela finally acted. She posted a long article accusing Julian of deliberately seducing her. She claimed she was just a naive girl in her 20s, deceived into being the other woman. She even included multiple intimate photos. She couldn't accept it. Why should her life be utterly ruined? While Julian might return to his family and even win back his wife's forgiveness, Leela wanted to destroy Julian too. In no time, the scandal between the two of them blew up online. Thanks to Julian's high-profile behavior over the years, his good looks, and a bit of internet fame, the story went viral. People loved nothing more than a cheating scandal. Julian had even previously cultivated an adoring husband image, an image that now completely collapsed, dragging his company's stock down with it. Insiders started leaking information. Julian, the devoted husband? Don't make me laugh. Claire and he were childhood sweethearts for years. And I saw with my own eyes how he sweet-talked the mistress while putting Claire down. Same here. That mistress even came to the office once, yelling at Claire about why Julie and didn't want her anymore. I nearly died laughing. She really has no shame. Riding the wave of this drama, I had the company launch a new product and post it on Weibo. Thanks for your concern. Divorce proceedings have been filed. Certificate coming soon. The product launch was a huge success. The company made a fortune. I was so busy I barely had time to breathe. Watching the stock price climb higher and higher, I became more and more motivated to make money. But Julian wasn't doing so well. His parents, who'd watched me grow up, had already been disappointed in him when they found out about his repeated infidelity. This time, with such a public scandal, they didn't even consider helping him. Julian had to spend a lot of money just to calm the storm a little. But dissatisfaction within his company was growing, and it took everything he had to suppress it. He wanted to throw Leela in jail. He demanded that she pay back all the money he'd spent on her within 3 days. But Leela had always spent extravagantly. She had no money left. So she said sweetly, "Julian, me no, come to my place. I'll give you the money." Then Leela stabbed Julian. When the police arrived, she was sitting in a pool of blood, crying and laughing. "I didn't do anything wrong. I just wanted to climb higher. It was Julian who gave me the wrong impression, who told me he loved me. That's why I was fooled. Why should my life be completely destroyed while he still gets to live like some rich young master? He ruined me, so I'll ruin him too." What awaits her now is nothing but many long years in prison. Julian didn't die. His internal injuries were severe. He would likely never recover in this lifetime and would have to stay in the hospital long term. When I received a call from Julian's mother, I felt a moment of daze. She was clearly uncomfortable, stammering over the phone, "His condition isn't looking good. He wants to see you. If it's too much trouble, just forget it." I wouldn't want to agree either. "But he's crying like a dog right now." After hesitating for a moment, I agreed. After all, the divorce certificate hadn't been finalized yet. When I approached the hospital room, Julian's mother was already waiting at the door. Her eyes lit up when she saw me. Her well-maintained face was filled with guilt. "I know coming to see Julian must be hard for you." I shook my head. To be fair, Julian had done wrong, but his parents had always treated me well, like their own daughter. When they found out he had cheated, they were the first to beat him up. When I said I wanted a divorce, they supported my decision and even helped me fight for more assets. "I'm sorry, Claire. It's our fault for not raising him right." I shook my head again. "It's okay, Auntie. This just needs to be resolved." I gently pushed the door open, and a wave of sterile white filled my vision. Julian was lying in the hospital bed, his face pale as a sheet, with gray stubble on his chin. He was so thin he barely looked human. When he heard the sound, he opened his eyes with difficulty. "You came." I nodded and casually pulled over a chair to sit down. I didn't know why, but my chest felt tight. When I decided to divorce him, I had him mad and all kinds of ways to get revenge. But now that he was really on the verge of death, I just felt sad. After all, we had spent so many years together. How are you? He lowered his head and gave a bitter smile. This is it for me. I'll never leave the hospital again. Did the doctors say when you can be discharged? We should go finalize the divorce first. His eyes wide and in disbelief. Even now, you still can't forgive me? I replied calmly. First of all, these injuries are the result of your own actions. If you hadn't cheated, would Leela have tried to take revenge on you? You pushed her to the edge. His long hair covered his eyes, hiding his expression. I saw a clear teardrop fall onto the back of his hand. His voice choked. You're really going to leave me, aren't you? Just like the last lifetime, no matter how hard I try. You won't come back. I'm the only one holding on to our memories. The room was silent, except for his quiet sobs. After a long while, he finally said, I won't agree to the divorce. Claire, you can only be mine. When I walked out of the hospital room, my expression was grim. I took a deep breath before I could restore my composure. Julian's mother grabbed my hand, her gentle eyes full of sorrow. We heard everything he said. It's our fault for not teaching him right. Claire, thank you for still coming to see him today. His father and I will persuade him to agree to the divorce. Don't be afraid, dear. When I got into the car, I still felt stifled. I spaced out for a while. When I finally looked up and caught my reflection in the rearview mirror, I realized tears were streaming down my face. I wasn't crying for Julian but for the man I once loved. And for the girl I used to be. Eventually. I don't know what Julian's parents said to him. But he finally agreed to the divorce. The day we went to the civil affairs office to sign the papers. The weather was beautiful, clear skies. Not a cloud in sight. I noticed green buds sprouting on the bare branches. It hit me. A bit late, spring had arrived. The entire way there, Julian and I were quiet. Only the occasional sound of his coughing broke the silence. When the staff finally stamped the documents and I held the warm divorce certificate in my hands, all my unease melted away. Claire, he said. He was so thin it looked like a breeze could blow him away. I'm sorry. I destroyed your faith in marriage. I paused. With the weight lifted from my heart, even my tone became lighter. No, Julian. You didn't destroy me. You destroyed yourself. Life is long. I'll meet someone I love again. And I'll still have the courage to fall in love. The damage is done. I don't accept your apology. Julian burst into tears again. People around us were staring. A small child said in a babyish voice, This uncle cries even more than me. Behind me was the sound of his weeping. I didn't look back. And I never would again. Bonus. Julian was reborn. But the timing was all wrong. He came back to life after Claire discovered his affair. At first, when he saw the familiar Claire, he was overwhelmed with joy. This was perfect, there was still time. He could win her back. Claire had always been soft-hearted. Surely she would forgive him. What Julian didn't expect was that Claire's heart was just as cold as it had been in their previous life. In that life, he had tried everything to beg Claire for reconciliation after their divorce. But she had refused. In this life, he begged her not to divorce him, but she still said no. He blamed Leela for everything. She was the one who had clouded his judgment. After their divorce in the previous life, Claire's family hated him. Even his own parents disowned him and focused all their attention on raising a child through IVF as a replacement, because of several work blunders and deliberate sabotage from Claire's friends. His company soon teetered on the edge of collapse. At that point, he had believed Leela truly loved him. But she betrayed him, ran away with all the money, and leaked confidential company documents. He finally realized that the only person who had ever truly loved him was Claire. Why had he let her go? Julian went to any lengths to get revenge on Leela. He believed that only by doing so would Claire forgive him. That way, his parents might also stop being disappointed in him. But Julian didn't expect Leela to be so desperate. He knew she couldn't repay the money. So he deliberately went to her apartment one night to mock her. To take revenge for her betrayal. But he let his guard down and Leela stabbed him in the stomach. If I go to hell, you're coming with me. The pain was unbearable. In the middle of the night, Julian woke up in agony. The wound throbbed violently. This pain would stay with him forever. Tears slipped from the corner of his eyes onto the pillow. Why, even after being reborn? Had nothing changed? Why was this life even worse than the last? His once thriving company was now under someone else's control because he no longer had the strength to manage it. His parents were still deeply disappointed, so much so they wouldn't even see him. His old friends had all cut ties with him completely. And Claire, according to others, the young man she was spoiling now, was attentive, funny, cutting to my cultured, and always made her laugh. She was living her best life. Only Julian was left like a dying dog, barely hanging on. I really do regret it, he whispered,